Call the meeting to order. Gavin. Here. You just say here.
Here.
Wendy.
Here.
Charlie.
Here.
Dean, and I'm here. So
Bill's here. Bill's here now.
And Phil is here. So welcome, Phil. So we are in process now, meeting of November 2nd of the Solar Implementation Task Force. We have 2 sets of minutes this evening. I have already seen the 19th and sent or actually added some edits myself. So I don't have anything. I have nothing further on the current set, and we had not completed our discussion of the meeting of the minutes of the 5th. So,
well, there's Steve.
Yeah, let the record show that you both just joined on the video.
So you want our comments now on the minutes?
Yes.
So I thought the minutes were very well done. I thought I had 2 very minor comments. One is, I'm sure you already mentioned this, Phil Thayer.
Okay.
Phil Thayer is the name of the Phil in those minutes. And then it's,
So this is on the 19th?
well, there's a presentation that was made.
Oh, okay, that would be the.
And the other comment was SCADA instead of SCATA.
I think
you.
I already got that
SCADA
one.
is what
I handed that one in.
is what a fox does when it comes across your path.
We got that.
Oh, look, we got Phil joining it now.
Yep. Yeah.
Very nice.
All good.
We just have a still shot of Phil though, no action.
So I added I returned my edits already, which were all very minor. They were just like typos and this and that. Yeah. So I guess I'm happy to entertain a joint motion on both sets of minutes.
I move that we accept both sets of minutes.
Second.
So these are for the minutes of October 5th and October 19th. I'll call the roll. All right. Phil.
Yes.
Wendy.
Yes.
Charlie.
Yes.
Steve.
Yes.
Gavin.
Yes.
And myself, Dean, yes. So that is a motion. So we have accepted those minutes. The chair's report is actually fairly brief. There was a 2229 presentation by the EPA. I unfortunately was unable to attend. I just my own difficulties with scheduling and whatever. There's a combination going on there. Anyway, did anybody else attend? And does anybody else have anything to say about that? I'm going to try to dig up the 2229 minutes and not the minutes, the video, and forward that around. So if anybody wants to follow up, we should just be aware. And they do have a meeting coming up.
November 9th. I think anybody from the committee who wants to attend, because this is a public open meeting, right? Where they want comments from the town on what to do.
Yep. So that
I think I don't think we've missed anything. This is the big one. But back to 2229. Have you had a chance to call work stream people, or should I just do it, or what?
I have not had a chance to call any of those work stream people. I sent an email to Paul Bain and said, we want to get involved with these 2 work streams. So,
but he said you just call them.
Okay, I will.
So you want me to call?
I'll call them. Okay, I will reach out. So
I thought it was appropriate for the director to do that.
Yes, fine. Other than 2229, I don't really have anything really to add. I did a lot of stuff but it's going to show up in the progress reports, in particular the seats of adjustments. So I'll just hold my fire until we get to the actual agenda items in question. So that allows us to move on pretty quickly to the BDs. Now I know Charlie's been talking to the new director of the BD, Bob is his name, I believe.
No, he's not the director of BD. He is the maintenance director.
Facilities director, facilities manager of the BD, Bob. And I know, Wendy, you've been working on the financial modeling.
Yep.
And, why don't you give us an update?
Well, why don't you let me start?
Okay,
Yeah,
you
definitely
start.
you
You
start
start
this
with,
off.
yeah,
Yeah, so, the plan was, I talked to Bob again, I see him over there, and I've met with him a couple of times, very informally. And they're ready to go, they're all jazzed up. And that just want to reemphasize that our step at the present time is to come up with a first best approximation of what it's going to cost and what they're going to get from a rooftop installation. They've dropped the parking array, parking canopy. So what the plan is we're going to meet with them and go over the financials that Wendy is working on, and answer any questions they have. And if there are issues, we're going to come back here and resolve them. And then we're going to give them final and let them stew on that and decide what they want to do.
So
now what they need to do, let me just finish up
Yep.
my comments here. What they need to do after we finish giving our spiel and our latest and best, financials, what they're going to need to do is decide how to proceed with their board and with Carrie and with others to basically raise this up a level and say, this is something we want to do. Give us guidance on how to proceed. Now, we can't really do a whole lot more than help them understand what the picture is. But, they need to decide, whether they're going to borrow money, whether they're going to go to Carrie and what they're going to ask Carrie for, if anything, and exactly when they want to do this. Now, the roof does not get redone, until next year, but, this is something that, or maybe they may not do it until the year after next. I'm not sure what the timing is on that, but they're going to sort that out and get a schedule together. And this is the stuff that we're going to go over with them at such a time as we're ready now.
Remind us, would generate roughly what, based on preliminary numbers?
Generate what? It's
How many
100,
kilowatts?
it's 170 kW if you use a 450
potential.
watt panel. That's decent size. And that will be the first town building that gets rooftop solar. So it's kind of a first. It would be behind the meter, so it would suck down all of a lot of the internally generated demand. And it's something that we've been working on. I started working on 10 years ago. So that's how long some of this stuff takes. But I think the point is that, to get this right, and this is what we wanted to do at this meeting, and Wendy's going to lead this part of it, is make sure that we're on the straight and narrow with respect to the various variables so that we can get a good picture on the financials. And second, we need to discuss the storage situation. Storage has been on again, off again. I'm not sure we understand why storage would be required for this, seeing as it's so small, and seeing as if it's behind the meter, we really can't monetize the storage. So we'll have that discussion a little bit later in this agenda item. So I'll turn that over to Wendy.
Can I just interject for a second? One of the key inputs to a financial model is going to be a relatively accurate number in terms of how much energy is going to be generated. And what are we using to, like, Gavin made some estimates in his spreadsheet as to what was possible. He looked at the
Wendy will know that.
And what have you learned? Wendy will know that.
Well, no, this is the list on the list of things to go over. I think what you're referring to is the cost avoidance. There are 139 panels.
So you have an actual.
We know everything about this. We know everything there is to know.
So have those
450 watt panels is what was on CMS, what was put on the CMS roof. So we're assuming we would put 450 watt panels on this roof. The engineering, and Dave can comment on this, the engineering stuff has to be completely updated.
So when was engineering done on it?
2014.
Okay.
2016, whatever, a while ago. But this stuff doesn't, the roof didn't change.
No. And the panel sizes are the same.
Panel sizes are the same. Panels are more powerful.
Right.
But, I think that what we want to do to the best of our ability is to basically follow the precedent in terms of all the technical details we can pull out of the CMS deal and just roll them into this so that we're not asking the same question over again
Right.
at this point.
Yeah.
Now, after we get through this initial step, we can get into all this fine tuning around. But I think at this point, we want to get a reasonable approximation without killing ourselves, because who knows, maybe they decide not to do it.
No, that, you've answered my question, which is there are engineering drawings from 2014. They specifically
there
laid
are.
out N number of panels. We use modern metrics for how much a panel can generate. And those are the inputs that we have for how much energy we're gonna be able to generate on a building.
And I've turned all this stuff over to Wendy, so Wendy is the second
Okay.
person in the committee that has all the data.
Right.
And the design concept, is it identical to what is being done on CCHS?
CMS.
I'm sorry, CMS, the middle school.
Okay.
Well, no, I don't, it is what it is going to be. Whatever it is going to be what the engineers say it's supposed to be, but I think from a panel point of view, we can basically suck out of that project. They use 450 watt panels on the roof.
Sure.
Yeah.
Isn't that what we want to know for now? We want to know how much this thing will generate to do our financials. Does that answer the question? You
I
can't
guess
copy,
I'm
you can't copy
confused.
CMS.
Okay, I'm confused because we have several projects, we have a number of them. One of them is a space between BD and
Right,
the present high school. So I'll call that BD1. And we're talking now about BD2. And I'm not clear as to whether the new CCHS has any rooftop.
we're not pursuing CCHS rooftop. Now, we could, but would be another discussion. You want to ask to bring that up, I'm sure we could put it on the agenda and talk about it, but.
Bill, I think you were out for a couple meetings, and so this is a
That
project.
was missed.
That,
You missed
yeah,
it.
I think that's where
You
we
missed it,
missed.
yeah.
So, well, we've been talking about. some
I was out
priority
in more
projects.
ways than one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
I know,
Well,
but I think,
yeah,
so this
that's
has been a project that Charlie's been working on for years. We've been trying to get solar on there, so I think what we had decided was that Charlie was gonna continue to work with the BD Center and support their request, because they want to install solar behind the meter for their own energy savings. So it's sort of, it had its own legs, if you will.
Well, it's had its own history, and you know, this is one way or another. I think you raised this early on. So what's going on at BD? So we went
I
and
did,
collected the
actually.
data. It's all your fault. So we went and collected the data on all the existing projects, and this one, we resurfaced this one, and this one is.
Whereas
It's,
the potential for for the new CCHS high school, for reasons which may be encoded in meetings that wasn't there, do not rise to the top of the pile.
The CCHS campus, basically what rose to the top of the pile for us were attempts to just do ground mounted systems, which tend to be the least expensive to do. And generally, if the land is there, they are the most straightforward to do. You don't have to interact with the mechanicals on a building's roof, or whether or not the roof is 12 years old and needs to be replaced in 5 years or something. And then
Whether it takes the weight, etc.
no weight and all that. You just put them on the ground and call it a day. So we're focused on ground mount, and that's why the area that's in front of the BD there is the area on the CCHS campus that we're focused on.
Thank you.
Okay.
And the financial modeling that Charlie's referring to is for the new middle school that just broke ground.
Right.
So there's the solar array and stored there, and there was some financial modeling that was developed for that. And so saying maybe we can try to use that.
And the
So
middle
apply to
school one, I know has part of it is parking lot. Is
Well, the middle school is the middle school. Let's just leave it at that.
okay.
We took what we could out of the middle school project that was applicable here, and we're going to use that data. So yeah, the middle school project has rooftop and parking lot canopies, but that doesn't inform us as to what to do with the rest of our year's worth of work.
It just gives us information about what happens with two different configurations.
That's right. We have information.
Well, maybe now I
No,
can jump in
yes,
now.
Okay, maybe Wendy can
We
come.
have,
So,
we
but-
have 5 more minutes on
Go.
the agenda item here.
No, I know. So, so there was a financial model that Dean had just disseminated to all of us, and that was sort of a prototype of what happened at CMS. So, but what's important about that model is it has some very key assumptions in it, right? So it's a model that will take solar inputs, whether it's ground or canopy. It didn't have ground, it had roof and
Right.
canopy, but it had it takes inputs from a mortgage perspective, interest rates, the NREL conversion from DC to AC,
Right.
and sort of trending metrics. And so it's a good model, and it does a very good job of reflecting what's in CMS's finances, because it took a lot of those attributes from the actual CMS
And we
finance model.
developed that model
So-
from
From
another
Belmont,
school
right.
that was built in Belmont, so we imported that
Belmont
stuff
model,
over
yeah.
here.
Right. So at the last meeting, one of the things that Dean asked me to do was take that model and add the NPV to it. But at the same time, I also sat down with Laura just to understand what really happened in the CMS model, what goes into it, what are all the inputs, just from partly my own edification, but thinking that this model would become a prototype for all the projects that we have to do.
Yep.
And it started raising a lot of questions for me about how we're going to use this model, because we won't always have all the same detailed inputs.
And does that
On a
also
model.
mean that it's without the potentially required battery addition?
So yes, right now the model does not incorporate batteries. So let's just say it's a simple, it's a solar implementation.
Well, there's a separate
So
model for batteries.
there is, but we're not right now
Right.
doing that. But as we get to these really detailed implementations, so if we're ready to go forward with the funding, we're getting very close to detailed design, the land. So, and when we get to that level, whatever financial model we put together, we have a good prototype, but if we're at that level, the other thing we'll have to need to do is say, what's the rate impact? And so that's not something that I think we will do. And Dave, I will look and suggest and say that really has to be a model that would be blessed from CMLP, because it has rate impact, right?
That's what we did with CMS one.
Absolutely. So I'm just
Right.
saying, for the record, that when we get there, I think that CMLP will be management model and will help in any way
Right.
we can. I did see that there were some differences in our model from what was in the CMS model in terms of what the level of detail that Laura has.
Laura has very deep detail
She
about
has
when the
details,
sun is
right.
shining and what
Yeah.
what you're gonna
right.
pay for energy during those moments when the sun is or is not
Well,
shining.
the SDA gives you that kind
Yeah,
of
yeah.
detail because it gives you by hour sort of
That's
benefits. But you know
for
what?
the
That's
PV
for our,
watts. That's the PV watts stuff, yeah.
right,
And are we
right.
close to getting a definitive answer on whether we are gonna be required to have battery inside of our projects, or is that still up?
Can we let Wendy
Yeah.
go on with her
Right.
stuff?
So what I wanted to just say is that I'm sort of struggling a little bit with how far we go with the modifications to the model. I took the model, it didn't currently have ground mounted in it, but I've added it, modified it to allow ground mounted. So
Okay.
we can have a project that can have any combination of ground, roof, or canopy. That's easy.
Great.
That's
Can
easy.
I suggest that we
Yeah.
focus on what we need to get out of, to get the BD model to run?
Well, so let me just make a point.
Okay.
It should be the same model.
Yeah.
It should not be different. However, I do want to say that it's because it is behind the meter. And so, so I guess why I was going with the prototype model was that Laura has some really good information around trends. The rec prices are higher than what's in that model.
Okay.
And so what I would like to do is sort of look at how I would tweak that model to be a little more accurate or more accurate than what was there, because it could present it.
Yeah. Well,
So, I can do that and then I'll bring it back at a future meeting, but now let me go to BD. Because in the BD model, there are two things. One is it's behind the meter, but in the model, there's also part of the revenue projections are recs, right? And if
That's a problem here. Right.
that's why we're talking about this
Okay.
right now.
That's right, that's a problem.
All right,
Yep,
because, and Dave, I'm gonna look at you, in the CMS model, there were recs recognized, but recs, we're not technically selling the recs, but in the CMS model, we viewed it as sort of opportunity cost savings.
That's right.
Because we are not purchasing those recs, we have
Right.
those recs. So, but with BD, if the BD management team thinks that the revenue they're getting I don't know if they're expecting to sell racks.
I,
And this is what
I think,
Dave.
no, they're not, there's no selling reps
I
here.
know there aren't. but,
So I
like,
think
should
what
be
we should
treated as-
do is we should do
Right.
what is the right thing.
Right.
And the right thing is, this is a town project. They're gonna contribute to the town, efforts on greenhouse gas stuff.
Yeah,
And, we're gonna have to figure out how to hold those wrecks and retire them. So we should model it that way. And I don't think we should open the door to, whoa, should we do
no,
it?
but that's kind of why I have Dave here
Yeah.
and you here, because this is
Yeah.
an important topic for
Very.
the BD model in particular, because I don't know how we're gonna treat those wrecks, how we retire them, or if there's any revenue benefit to BD or not. Because it's gonna swing their model. pretty
Well, can we
significantly.
say that, I mean, personally, I think
Yeah.
that it's correct to treat the wrecks as avoided cost.
Mhm.
Yeah, there are
There-
benefits
there's
to the
no
They-
light
difference. It's
Yeah.
avoided
Benefits
cost.
of the
We
light.
get
But
the
not-
wrecks.
But it's not gonna be to BD. So if we're
That's
gonna
right,
go
that's
to the
true.
BD management.
That's right. It's
team
not gonna
and
go,
cash
it's not
flow,
gonna go to BD.
It's not going to, now, we in our project, probably
Right.
gonna have to put BD in our model,
Right,
and so we can treat it that way
right.
in when we do our big report, but for BD management, I don't know that they're gonna get cash out every time.
That they're gonna get what?
Any,
They're
there's
not
no
gonna get cash.
No,
benefit,
no,
no
no.
Right,
financial
right,
benefit.
so.
No.
that's
When you
a part of
speak of Rex, I assume you're talking about some kind of form of a loan by BD?
No,
No.
This is like a long discussion.
yeah, Phil.
Yeah.
We'll take
Okay.
that after the meeting, maybe.
Yeah, this-
Okay.
Yeah.
a REC is a
Okay.
renewable energy credit, and every kilowatt that you generate, you get an accounting thing called a renewable energy credit. And that can be segregated off from the energy you actually then consume, and you could sell that to somebody else. You put it on the market and sell it. The light plant buys plenty of RECs because we buy general energy from the spot market. It's generated by a whole bunch of different, resources from, any number of resources. And to make the light plant's energy portfolio fully green, we have to then buy these credits to show that the energy that we're consuming is all green resource. That it is a long conversation.
It is long, right?
It's a long conversation, but these credits are something that the BD would have, but they would not be able to take advantage of financially. They would, because they're a town entity, they would return to the light plant.
Turn them over to light plant.
Like
they
turn the light
retire.
plant and retire them.
So I think that should be our going in strategy.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I want
Okay,
to get
good,
that
good, good,
clear, because I think it's important.
And my other question, which we touched on before, is the BD project, with or without batteries?
Let's
Which-
look at- that's
Okay,
next.
come back.
It's in the subset. We kind of
It's in
skipped
there,
past
right,
it, but we'll get to it.
Right,
We'll
so I
get
just-
to it at some point.
Right,
Let-
the only
let's-
other thing I'd say about the model, and I haven't, but I will work, with, we've got really good, usage information from BD Center. There is the operating costs that we would need to estimate. It's got a plug number in there right now. And I don't know, Dave, if maybe even Laura could help sort of guesstimate what the implementation costs might be with those number of panels. I don't know how we would drive it.
That's a percentage. That's just driven off the
Was it,
size of the project.
but I don't know
It
if
has
it's
been.
CMS also had canopy and there's engineering pieces. There's a lot of cost to it, so.
We took it off Belmont. That was the,
But I'm just wondering if, like, I guess that's on the long term. When I was thinking about how to do this long term, we would have to make it some kind of factor of the
There-
size of the installation.
Yeah, when you
So-
build up a project like that, there's all kinds of like startup costs that have to
Yeah,
do with
yeah,
getting your
yeah,
bonds in place
implementation,
and get, mobilizing your
Right,
mobilization line item and a bunch of other. You were just on the CMS building committee, you still are, and the spreadsheet's quite long, and there's a whole bunch of basically fixed costs to the
Oh, yeah,
project that
yeah.
you just have to sum.
oh, we have
Right.
installation, we have,
Yeah.
we
There's
have
four
shipping,
categories
we
in
have
it.
all kinds of
Yeah,
stuff,
yeah.
so.
But I just don't know how to validate that 85,000 that's in there now. I'm
Okay.
just wondering if this is something I could.
Was that a
talk to Laura
plug number
about.
in there?
Well,
or
when
no?
Charlie sent it over at this
Well,
point.
I think this is something that's gonna have to be validated by SDA. I don't think we
Yeah.
want to get into doing all this super Picayune research.
Or we just do some percentage of what CMS did.
Well,
That
that's what that is. That's what that number is.
So the 85 is.
Yeah, the 85 is, but you could check it against CMS, but I would just take it off CMS. And we'll just say that's an assumption. And I think,
Right. I just want to understand how we got there. And maybe even I could just talk
Okay.
about that.
Well, I think we got it out of Belmont.
I just don't want to get
Well, there was a lot that went into this. These aren't made up numbers. There was a lot of discussion on this.
Yeah,
With a lot of
I just heard you
professionals,
like to
yeah.
do this.
But when he wants to know what that, just a précis of what that conversation might have been to get to those.
And
numbers.
part of it is, as we go forward and we, these other projects that we might line up in our long-term list, we're gonna need to go through some similar sort of modeling. And it would be great to just figure out how we can get a factor for,
Yep.
a factor for implementation on a ground mount, a rooftop.
Sure.
You know where I'm going?
Yep,
So that's
yep.
why I want to.
And we had, those are the factors that we would use on the larger projects would be probably, the closest model we have for that is the CMS. Of course, we don't have the ground mount, but we didn't really differentiate between the two, I don't think, in our
Yeah, I don't think so.
overhead costs.
Okay,
Let's
so.
not hold this up. So
one more
I,
thing.
Well,
will-
there's more stuff though. It's more stuff to go over.
on the financial model.
Yeah.
Well,
Go
I
ahead.
didn't actually present, I wasn't comfortable.
no,
with
it's-
No,
presenting, so I
there's more
have to
stuff
have
that, there's more issues, more issue stuff that we gotta talk about.
on the financial
Yeah.
model.
Well, I think we have one, which is what are the incentives? I think we need to double check all the incentive money. There's, I don't.
Oh, we need
I-
to.
I'm not an expert on this stuff.
25.5%.
There's
25%.
ARPA, there's the Inflation Reduction. Now, if we're all set that's
We're good
a
with that.
settled,
I
that's
did talk
settled.
to Laura about
Oh,
that.
you are good with
Oh,
that?
yeah,
Oh,
no, that's
okay,
why I
great,
spent a lot of time
great.
talking to Laura about all the assumptions in the model. And
The,
she said, yeah.
the IRA money was discretionary on the part of the town manager, and, I don't think there's any of that left to be moving towards projects of this nature. So the only thing that then remains is the ARPA money, which is, it's legislated that you can get these discounts off, you can get this.
But it's our discretion where we put it. We don't have to put it on this.
No, any project can apply.
Right, in the town.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's discretionary, so it's not like you put in a solar array and you get this kind of manna from heaven because you have
No, you do.
150 kW.
Yeah, you do. You get the money comes from heaven, but you have to then file your tax forms and
Yeah.
to get the money. But yeah,
But don't we,
it's not like they gave us a pot.
oh, it's not a
It's,
pot.
it's not a block
Oh,
grant.
no,
It's not a block
yeah.
grant. That's the
There's
IRA.
IRA.
The IRA was like a block
Okay,
grant,
great,
and then Carrie had the right to just.
So
come in.
then we don't have any action items on this.
No,
I think
the
we
ARPA,
got one.
Incentive package stuff. So the only thing
Yeah.
that you don't know then, that you're uncomfortable with is the
The
install
implementation
maintenance
costs. Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, yeah. And it's just trying to.
Okay.
And I would tweak, I would make, as I said, on a long-term model, I would tweak. Well, I guess even if being, I guess the recs are the one place where it's different. There's some, the energy cost more would trend different than what was in the original model. But those are the tweaks that I would put in that sort of profile model. I'll put them in the BD one as well.
And what did you use for period?
20 years.
Did you use 20?
It's all in there. So I
So-
think 20.
It's 20 for the length of the depreciation, and it's 15 for the loan.
So there's a couple other things.
That
came
was
up in
one
my
way.
Yeah,
conversation
that's the way I thought we had thought about these in the past, is that this is
Right.
like
That's the way we
15-year
thought about it.
assets,
Yeah.
like
Right.
15-year retirement of the asset.
And the only other thing that I'll mention that the CMS model did, that that wasn't in the prototype, was that the inverters. The
Mhm.
CMS project actually put in funding from an expense perspective to replace inverters in year 10.
We had to go around with the finance committee on that, and that Laura had originally budgeted that as basically big payments in 10 and then 20 years. Like, here, we're gonna just need a pot of money. And I said, can you please create like an escrow fund
Yeah,
that you're, an impress
yeah.
fund of some kind that you're putting the money in? And she went back to the model and changed it to that. So that
Yeah,
way
no,
of
that's what I
doing
was
it,
saying. So
Yeah.
that's there. So
that's there, good.
it's definitely the CMS model. It's not in our model. So if we have a project that's got these inverters in it, we ought to sort of incorporate somehow those inverter replacements in year 10. And
Yeah.
just what you said,
Yeah.
is sort of put some parameter in there. It could be an O&M or it's a separate line. It's part of the expense. But I just think it would be frugal for us to include that expense. Just
Sync fund or whatever it's called.
So now on to the storage discussion.
Yeah.
Go for it.
So,
Well, I guess my feeling about storage, and Dave, I know you have gonna have a lot of comments about this, probably, it seems to me that one of the aspects of storage is the ability to monetize it. So if you monetize it, you can pay for it. Otherwise, it's very expensive. So for BD to have a battery for a 150 kW system, and for us to try to monetize that and turn over control of the battery somehow to Dave and have it used for shaving the peak and so forth and so on, seems to me to be over the top when we're dealing with such big numbers on some of these other installations to kind of pick on this little beady thing with a need to have storage it's just not something I would be real comfortable with. I would hope we wouldn't have to do it. So I'd like to hear what everybody else has to say, and I'd like to hear what Dave has to say.
And I would like to also understand whether it's in fact, as was stated in one of these notes, a requirement. In which
Oh,
case
well,
we
that's
have no
an
latitude.
that's the other interesting aspect of this. I model the production of energy, solar energy, against the by hour against the for peak days in July. Well, if we're going to generate this much in July, and our run rate at BD is X, is there any chance that we would ever have to net meter anything, or is this all consumed instantaneously by the pumps and by the rest of the BD environment? And if that were so, why would we want to or need to do storage to prevent issues with duct curves and solar peaks and so forth?
backfeeding the grid.
So I guess I'm at a loss as to understand why that would make sense under those conditions. So I'm glad you asked that question.
So are you suggesting that we should go to the selectmen and ask for a repeal of that rule, or how would you deal with it?
Well, I think that's up to Dave's discretion and the light board, but I think we want to make a case that maybe we don't need storage and maybe work through the issues of.
So it may involve repealing a requirement.
Well, maybe avoid
It's a
making a
discretion of-
judgment call.
Yeah, I don't know that you're gonna totally repeal it, because I think that the light plant does have a legitimate interest in the current need to protect, the distribution system, so that maybe somebody out on Virginia Road wants to put in, a big roof mounted system on an office park or something, and that would create trouble on the distribution system. So you need to get.
So it's a minimum if the rule is as described, we need it modified if we're not going to have a battery.
We just need to with Dave, we just need to make a decision. Do we want to require battery storage or not? If we want to require battery storage, there ought to be good reasons for it, and we should model it as an expense and see how it plays out. And I think it would have very detrimental effects.
You may
on
be
the
absolutely,
financials.
you may be absolutely right. I'm still saying there is such a rule. We either modify it, ignore it with possible suits, or what?
No, we don't need to modify any rules. These rules are, this is the CMLP's business.
These are CMLP policies, and CMLP can modify their policies. So it's not like this is something that was laid down by a town meeting vote or something. This is just CMLP creating a basic rule to make sure that the risks to the distribution system are not exacerbated by large solar installations.
This is very helpful.
And I would say that I don't see any rule. I don't see a problem with that. So just leave the rule aside, and we'll see how that plays out as we go forward with other projects, as somebody else goes forward with other projects. But
what I'm
we just have to
hearing
figure out what
is,
we're doing with BD.
what I'm hearing is your present understanding is the rule may or may not be applicable to us, and we can take the position that it doesn't apply, and that may work.
That work,
Only
Well, we
it's
have to work
only with
through
Dave.
Dave.
we work with Dave. I mean, it works if it works. It doesn't work, it doesn't work. We'll know in a
Right.
few minutes when
Okay,
we talk to Dave.
So one thing, let's go back to Charlie's earlier comment, because I do want to sort of focus on that for a minute. If you look at an installation like the BD, where literally every kilowatt that the BD generates will not go off the campus, it is going to get consumed by the building. Then they're not in a position to need a battery for any reason to store excess energy and then deliver it back to the building later or whatever. That the battery would not provide them with any direct benefit. I don't see a direct benefit to them.
Or to the town.
Or to the town, with him being a town entity. So the question is it something that we want to require just because there's a policy and we want to be equitable about the implementation or the use of this policy? Or is it something that the BD as a town building and being in a location that can certainly allow for the generation of energy, can it just bypass this policy? I think a reasonable case can be made. Dave's got his hand up, so Dave would like to weigh in.
Hold on a second. Before we put, I don't think we should put Dave on the spot on this either. We don't need to make a decision on this tonight. We can do all of our modeling without the storage decision, having been made. We have time.
Okay,
And, it's to be discussed and to be maybe sorted out by Dave and his team, whatever Dave wants to do, I'm fine with.
well, let's let Dave say his piece for now, and then we can carry on. Well, how about that? Dave, what do you go for?
So I think as you guys being the task force, I wouldn't focus on the battery stuff as much. I would focus on the solar for BD like you are. And, that's an internal thing that will work out in terms of requirements. We have the right to waive things. This is a specific project that we most likely would waive that requirement. So I wouldn't worry about that. I would keep doing the work you're doing.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
good, clear answer.
No, that's good. Yeah. Perfect. Yeah, exactly.
Dean, can I ask a question of Dave? A project like the BD Center, would you still have the control capability of shutting that off if you needed to?
We'd have to work out an interdepartment policy on that because we wouldn't be the owner of the array. The
Right.
BD Center would be.
Yeah.
Being another town department, if we had to, shut that off, they would certainly work with us. But we, looking at all the financial models and the payback and the expenses that they're trying to offset, we really wouldn't want to shut that off if we didn't have to. But if we had to, they would work with us.
Right. Well, I'm just saying, in lieu of a battery, you would have the capability to protect your system by curtailing.
Well, and that's why we're saying we have the ability to waive
Yeah.
that requirement.
Yeah.
Because it's another
Yeah,
thing.
you would say, we'll waive the battery, but we want to curtail if in an emergency we need to. Say for some reason, the BD Center had an emergency and they had to shut all the power off and just happened to be your peak period. You might want to come back and say, we'd like to go over and throw the switch on you for a.
Correct.
They're paying for this themselves though, out of their own dough. So the fact that they're self-funding this should cause us to be a little bit reticent to.
I agree, but this would be an emergency situation, right? It wouldn't be something that we figured, every March and every October we decide to curtail you for half your time, something like that. It would be that there was some reason that their demand dropped off significantly, and suddenly they are forced into a net metering scenario.
Yeah, it's unlikely we'd have to shut them off. But again, that's stuff that we would work out between the departments. And we certainly would be,
Fair point.
play fair in the pool with them because I understand all their financial implications and how this would play out. So, like I said, I wouldn't worry about the battery thing. That's an internal thing that we have to work out, and we will.
So we're good.
Okay, all right. So we're on time,
We are.
within a minute. CCHS
Beautiful.
update, progress update from the team. Okay, all right. So on this front, I have been kind of churning a little, but making forward progress. I sat down, I had a few emails back and forth with the chairs and the superintendent. And then the three of us sat down, Alexa Anderson, Tracy Morano, who's the chair of the regional school committee, and the superintendent, Lori Hunter. The three of us sat down, and I prepared for them some cutouts from the Cadmus report, which was in one of our meeting packets a little while ago, showing the overall campus and all the possible places that solar might go, and then focusing on what was labeled the number 6 area, which is the catchment area that we've been talking about between the BD and the parking lot. So the cabinet report really had a fair amount of detail. It had a shading diagram, like if we leave the trees where they are, how much less solar would you be able to build and get production from if you want to put the arrays in this configuration or that configuration. There's a different, production level. So I came prepared to have a very detailed conversation with them. And the conversation really turned into, well, wait a minute. We really aren't ready to do anything. We don't really even know what you want us to ask the school committee to do. And I had to back up a bit and say, I'm just looking for a willing partner. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a willing partner to move forward together. And the school committee needs to take some kind of vote that says we can spend some of our time and energy focusing on this opportunity. Thank you very much. We have no memorandum of understanding of how it's going to work yet at CMS, so we want to back way up and try to get something a little bit more concrete, both there and for this, before we dive in here. So there was a lot of, we'll get it done, but it was not I came away from that not thrilled with how slowly the wheels are turning. It's been a month since I first went to the school committee meeting and made a plea during public comment to, can we please get this going? It's a month later. We will not be on their agenda for next Tuesday. We haven't done enough yet. So there you go. So what they wanted to do, that group of 3 wanted to have a meeting that involved the light plant and me. And so I met with Dave yesterday with Laura. So that the 3 of us sat down and I just kind of laid it out and said, they want to meet with you, Dave. They want to meet with the light plant. They want somebody official in the room. I'm just some task force volunteer. And,
well, don't minimize that.
That's the way they minimize me. That's what I'm saying. So, Dave, can you give us an update? Because then I think you called the superintendent or something, and what's going on now? What's the news?
So I emailed the superintendent, and we are working on setting up a time to meet probably next week to kind of go over the whole thing. So it's not locked in yet, but it's looking like it'll be next week with her and the 2 chairs.
Okay, so just CC me on that stuff and keep me in the loop. This is our project, Dave, and I appreciate you doing an independent thing, but it's our project. So I want to be in the room plus, in the event that you meet with them and then they say, okay, I want to get together with you and Dean, it's yet another meeting. I'm trying to get the number of meetings down if I can.
I did tell them that you wanted to attend as well, so.
Okay.
Well, I couldn't hear what you just said.
I did tell them that Dean requested to attend, so they're aware of that.
It's probably more than that. I don't think we have the meeting.
I don't think
we shouldn't have the meeting unless Dean is there.
I don't want them to. I don't want them triangulating, Dave. Let's put it that way. I don't want them to meet with me and say one thing and then meet with you and say another thing and then come back and meet with me again. We need to all be on the same page, and that needs to be at the same time.
And just to make it perfectly clear, we're not going to tell you what to do, Dave. We tried that before and it doesn't work. But we are in this together. This is a team, and I think we've got some good things going. And I think it's really important that that we're inclusive of the committee in these processes. We're not a bunch of dummies. I mean, we know how to do this stuff. And
Right.
despite what the school committee might think, we do need to be there.
Yeah, I will say that, I did feel as though they were like brushing me off like a mosquito who's kind of annoying them at the moment. Like, oh, get Dave in here. We'll talk to Dave. And the task force should be there. And so that's simple. Okay.
It's
So-
gonna be really flexible. So whatever that meeting
You're
is.
not gonna say you're out picking apples.
I am retired and I can make myself available. So just whenever the meeting is, Dave, I will be there. Just tell me when it is. That's all. Okay. So that's kind of where we are. On a different track for that, I'm trying to get some understanding of what kind of agreements have been put in place between other districts and other arrays that we see in our area. Wayland has canopies in their parking lot. LS has canopies in their parking lot. Carlisle has canopies in their parking lot. They all are connected to the Eversource grid. I have a 15-page draft of the agreement that Carlisle eventually signed with a company called Amoresco, who is providing it's not a power purchase agreement. They are not purchasing the power. Amoresco is leasing the property, and Amoresco is owning the RECs and selling the energy. And maybe they're selling it right to Eversource. And there's some kind of a lease payment that ends up being paid back to the town of Carlisle. Which sounds funky, but that's
Well, it's in many ways, it's identical to what we would do with one exception.
right.
We wouldn't be paying any money. No, seriously, Dave, this is serious.
Yeah.
It's a model that we can use because with the exception of the payment to Carlisle, it's the same problem.
I haven't yet, although I'm trying to pursue the same kind of agreement text that is in place at LS, and I could do the same for Wayland. I might have more success. I'm having a lot of trouble just getting through to the people at LS, but we can sort that out. I'll get to that eventually. So that's a piece of the way that this has to be done, which is a lot more complicated than when we get to the landfill conversation, because we're talking about an intergovernmental agreement between a regional school district who has control and rights over their property and the town of Concord, which is only one member of that district. So that is what we got to come up with, and it's a very legal relationship. Okay, so the other piece of this puzzle is we're trying to put arrays in an area that was designed to do something else. It was designed as a drainage area. To that end, I went to the NRC. I talked to Delia. She pulled out the 2012 packet of plans that could literally fit on this whole table. That's how big they are. The thing's got to be 25 pages thick. Charlie's familiar with these kinds of packages because of the CMS packages that have been created. And she got me down to the sheet that shows just the drainage swale, the actual contours of the thing, and all the contour lines and everything. And I have a copy of that picture because it's in the middle of a package. Where is that? Is it on my machine? No, it could be. Hold on. You just go to my photo and I can share it.
Just a bunch of lines.
It's just a bunch of lines. I don't need them. Probably don't need them.
Did she balk it when you said?
Hmm?
Like, what did she say when you
Well, no,
suggested we might be talking about solar?
she said you also need to talk to engineering upstairs and make sure that they're okay, that you're not going to impact the infiltration characteristics of that space. And I said, well, the water's just going to sheet off the panels and just flow back down into the space. I don't think that it's a problem. And she's like, yeah, but you get the mounts and you get this, that's going to be enough of them impervious, and so whatever. I'm okay. So
They measure all that stuff.
yeah. So I will follow up with engineering, which is my next thing. And I will try to get a digital copy that I can distribute to the team of that of that sheet. She told me how I can go back to the architect and they would have digital copies. This was done in 2012. The town got physical paper at that time. They were not receiving digital stuff. So I have to go back to the architect to get either a PDF or CAD drawing that we can distribute around. So I'm working it, doing my best. And Dave, thanks for your help. And we're on the road.
Right. So Dean, can I add one thing? I did a little research about solar arrays in catchment areas, and the primary concern had to do with the amount of water displaced by any infrastructure you put into the catchment, that the catchment has to be able to take that. You have to be able to demonstrate that you are not affecting the total net area that can be caught, which depending on how you install it, if we're doing like screw piles or something like that, it's going to be fairly minimal. But if you were to go in and put a concrete foundation in there, then you'd have to add up all that volume and make sure that you expand the catchment area to catch the same area, right?
Yeah, that's accurate.
Right. The other thing is I've been observing the catchment area for a couple of weeks, and it is being very effective and is filling with water. Which is interesting is that it's not infiltrating very quickly. So it's one of those things that we should just check in with engineering and find out, if it's functioning, if they're cleaning it or whatever it is. There seems to be plenty of area to the drains and the overflows. So I don't think our putting panels there would require us to change anything in the catchment area. We just have to be aware of it.
I waded down into it during a 1.5 inch rainstorm. There were about 4 inches of water in there. It's not, it didn't feel like we're going to be like waist deep or anything. So
no. But we do want it to dry out, because if it doesn't, then it becomes a wetland and then it's a no-go.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
yes.
So I think getting some sort of sign off from engineering, if they have some purview over this.
That's my next stop.
But something like that.
Yes, I know.
Letter, we determined, made this determination, blah, blah,
Then they're
blah.
gonna want to understand what the size of the structures are.
That's okay.
But that's okay, but having a word about it, that should be, that isn't gonna cut it, because when you go to town meeting, they're gonna be sticklers about that.
Oh, yeah, no,
Yep. And you're also gonna have to prove how you're gonna maintain those systems. Are you going to need catwalks or something in there? How are you going to get, vehicles or anything else in there to service all those panels when it's filled with water, if you needed to?
Right. Yep. So
we just pull ourselves in by the cable.
Yeah, we get waders and we go in. No, but I mean, it may be as simple as that, but if your panels are 8 feet up in the air above the bottom of the catchment area, they just need you need to work through the logistics. That's all.
Understood. And one of the things that came up with the school chairs was, well, over in this corner over here, we've got like a pollinator garden that we've done. I'm like, well, if we're putting all this stuff in, maybe we can reseed the area with pollinator species, like just put some meadow flowers in the hole underneath all the panels and, between them and everything. And you'll have pollinator heaven down there. So, there's a lot that can be done to try to help everybody else achieve their goals.
Not to get ahead of our skis here, but aren't we going to need some technical support on this from SDA and a little workup of what this is going to look like and all this kind of stuff, like a 15 grander, some kind of basic level. We're trying to get the town meeting and we'd like to, but maybe we won't, but
okay,
blah, blah, blah.
Based on the progress that I have not made so far, I am going to have to say it is unlikely that this opportunity is going to.
Okay, well, maybe it won't.
I'm just saying.
But I still have the same question.
The same question is
remains
valid. That at some point we move to some sort of technical workup.
You have to get some confidence
right.
in whatever way you want to do that.
Right.
That the school committee and Dave are okay with this.
Right.
Well, does that mean that we could easily continue with the 2 main projects plus the option on a third, and we either drop the option on the third or not based on what develops?
Well, what you're calling the 2 are the BD roof, which is really not our project. It's just encouraging the BD to get that done, and the landfill. and then this one. Those are the three that are active. Now, Gavin's done a little work on Plainfield Road, which I didn't put on the agenda.
Are we done with, you
I'm
think
just
we're done?
answering Phil's question.
Okay.
He just says three, and I don't know what he means by three. So those are
Okay.
three.
Let me clarify. If we're gonna move ahead at town meeting, we need something simple that people can understand.
Yes,
It has to be a small number or we'll be bogged down as other committees have been bogged down. So to me, the minimum number is 2 projects that satisfy at least 2 megawatts total. And we could consider a third. That's my initial thinking on having a plan with a timetable, monthly progress, and identifying all the questions that have to be answered. And in the case of town meeting, I would hope that we might jointly present it with the municipal plant. If we can do that, that probably increases the chances of it passing.
so right now we're not even on the agenda at the school committee, okay? The warrant will be open during the month of December. If we can get anything remotely like an agreement to be a willing partner, then maybe we could put on the warrant, we'd like to do a $15,000 feasibility study.
A fluffy thing.
Of something
Yeah,
very fluffy
yeah.
for this opportunity, which keeps the opportunity alive
Keeps it
and
in front of
Public-
people.
keeps it in front of people. And, that's something that we might be able to do, but we need to move the school committee literally within the next 6 weeks to the point where they're, hey, we want to be a partner with you in this, and then we might.
The only thing you said that wasn't obvious to me is if we get $15,000 from town meeting, that means none of the projects will actually break ground for another year.
Well, no, I'm not saying that. I'm saying on this project, we asked for
Thank you.
15,000 for feasibility because we're trying to get something done. Now, let's try this. I don't have that much more to say about this project, but Charlie's right. We probably have to at some point, but I think that before we're doing any kind of technical thing, we have to get the framework of what that intergovernmental agreement is going to look like. It could be a rough outline. It could be the 15-page full text of the Carlisle agreement, just with the edits.
If you don't
changing
get
the-
buy-in, why waste your time?
Right.
Well, I'm just saying, if we don't have buy-in, we're not doing a technical anything.
Well,
So-
I just think we ought to make sure we're thinking a couple steps ahead. Doesn't mean we have to run out with our checkbook, but we ought to be thinking about these big items. And I think one of them certainly is getting, enough comfort to proceed with this agreement. The other is getting enough comfort to do some technical work.
Yeah.
Those are the two things.
Yeah. So,
Yes.
okay, so that's my update, and I'm sticking with it.
Are you standing by it?
I'm standing by my update.
Okay.
And Dave, if you get a date, please let me know, and I will be there. Okay. The landfill is the next guy on our agenda. How are we doing? We are close to being on time. So I had the meeting I had with Dave and Laura, we got into this conversation, and I'm gonna let Dave talk about how we can proceed, and we need to probably discuss the item I put on the agenda, which is whether we segregate and how do we segregate what we're trying to do from the other things going on at the landfill. So Dave, maybe you give us an update on Kearsarge and what we talked about in our meeting, and that would be great.
Sure. I'll start out with the Kearsarge update. I just heard back from them today, actually, so it was timely. And we have a meeting set up next Thursday to kind of go over what they put together. They've done a couple different models. They've looked at just repowering the existing, which they have to do anyway. And what that means is replacing the inverters to the existing system. They believe if they replace what's up there, they can increase the output to 2.5 megawatts. It's currently 1.7 megawatts, so it's a pretty good increase without taking up any more footprint. They also look, in their, looking there, thinking about a battery near the shed. I haven't seen any of the drawings or any of the numbers yet. That's what Thursday's meeting's all about. But I did reach back to them and ask them about the array on the slope, and they have some information on that. They haven't shared it with me yet. What they did say, there are some shading issues that they'd want to talk about. So we're going to hear a little bit more on that on Thursday, and I'll be able to provide you guys with a better update in terms of Kearsarge. I also reached out to SDA to see if they could give me a price on doing a light feasibility design for the array on the slope, so that we can look at this internally as a separate system from the Kearsarge system. So SDA is working up the numbers on that for me, and I suspect I'll have that next week, and we'll make a determination, because that is a location that, if it is possible, it's an area that, as Dina said, it can be a separate array, and it could be one that's owned by the town light plant. So that's kind of where we are with the landfill.
The other comment I want to make about this project, which is so different from trying to do something at the high school. We own the land. The light plant has rights to do what it wants there, and there's nothing getting in the way. There's no legal agreements or other stuff. We can just do.
Unless there is with Kearsarge, we don't. Dave, do we have the right to, or is there an issue with building a separate installation right next to theirs?
No, I mean, it's town land. We can, if we can, engineer an array on the slope, and it works and all that, they can't tell us we can't, because basically we've, under a land lease, given them a certain acreage to use. We would have to just be good tenants with them, so to speak, because we're going to have the same equipment that they're going to have, inverters, all that sort of thing. So yeah, we could do it separately. That's a non-issue. We could also do it jointly with them, but I think we're looking at this in terms of a separate array that is owned by the town. I think that's the approach we're looking at. But I do want to hear from Kearsarge on their issues, what they think the issues are with the slope, because they've run some numbers and did some engineering. So, like I said, I'll know more next Thursday afternoon, which I'm kind of excited for, and SDA is looking at it for us as well. So yeah, we'll see. Hopefully it'll be good news.
Now, I just had one little question about SDA. Will they do a 3D shading model where they basically run the sky over they run the sun over the exact trees that are there and so forth, to see what the effect is on the target area and the time of it and all that?
Yeah, I mean, we might get that information through Kearsarge's proposal, so we might not have to do that. SDA could probably do that. It all depends on how much money we want to put up front on that. I think paying for feasibility, a short number makes sense, right? And then when you look at the shading outputs, all that's going to do is, obviously limit some of the kilowatt hour production. And again, if the town owned it, we would factor that output into the payback numbers. Kearsarge is just looking at it from a business standpoint, right? They're just trying to make money. So,
well, we want to know, basically, we want to know whether it plays out for us financially too, right?
Yeah, but
absolutely. And that's why you would run those numbers and then see, where they fall, and are they in the threshold for what we think is a reasonable number.
Okay. I assume that if they're going to give us production numbers, SDA, that they would have to run that shading analysis.
I would think so.
Okay.
What would happen if we thought about this as having a base project, the part that we know we can control, with an option, if we can work out an agreement with Kearsarge, we would add that later. Would that give us maximum leverage? We would definitely be doing this, and if we can work out an agreement, we'll add yours.
Well, I think the first job here is to figure out, well, what's there? What can we make out of this in a way that's clean and that gives us good numbers? And then if we want to make it smaller, we can, but I mean, it's not Dean.
Yeah.
I wonder, what we don't have right now is any understanding of the area from a measurement point of view, and we don't have any understanding of what it will produce. Given shading and sloping and all this kind of stuff.
But I'm worried about the different thing which I've been hearing again and again. And we're not sure if we can do business with these people.
Well,
So,
for the area that is
all right.
virgin, we don't have to deal
Oh,
with
no,
it.
that's right.
We don't
That's
care
why-
about Kearsarge. That they have their problems. Let's
No,
go
but
let
that's
them go do
exactly
they're
what
doing.
I'm saying. We have the part we can control. That's the project. But we have an opportunity to expand that project if we can work out something.
That's Dave's, what Dave's working on.
Right.
If Dave can work, help me if I'm wrong, Dave. Dave is gonna go figure out with Kearsarge whether we can get the thing upgraded so we can get more out of it. If we get more out of it, we're gonna count it. But we don't have to do anything with it. It's not our problem. It's for Dave to work out with the PPA people.
Well, the thing we do have to worry about, that we have to concern ourselves with, is how much the whole bus bar can take.
Right, 'cause
But that's a whole nother set of problems.
Yeah.
We have to deal with the bus bar and loads and
Right.
our buffers and all that kind of stuff. We
Right.
gotta figure out first what we can do.
Right.
We don't know what we can do.
like 0.7,
This is 0.8. This is 0.8 right here. You're saying we're
Oh,
gonna go up by 0.8 megawatts.
yeah.
Okay.
It's when he
By
upgrades.
upgrading
Yeah.
Kearsarge, we're adding 0.8 megawatts to that bus bar.
So.
And then we have,
6.5.
maybe another 0.9 over here at the catchment.
Yeah, but you don't know what we're gonna get on the catchment area anyway,
I know.
so we don't know any of this stuff.
But we
They
do
might
know-
say, we wanna have all our trees and you can only put it right in this wet place.
Right,
You get a half a megawatt. So I think we gotta keep going.
Right.
And play it as it plays. And if we need to have storage, because we're going up, we'll do storage.
Right.
Right? Won't we?
carry on. Let's,
The part,
Am I good? Am I good with this?
you're okay.
Yeah, no,
the
you're
part
right.
that worries me from what I've been hearing is we don't want to be slowed down, miss town meeting, etc., because the negotiations with Carriage are eternal. So if we have a base unit we control, that's definite. And then we have an option to expand, then they can't hold us up.
We just have to push along what we can push along.
Right.
We can't be thinking about, well, is this gonna happen? Okay, we
We're
don't
saying
know
the
what
same
Kearsarge is
thing.
gonna, we wanna figure out what it takes, what it means to max out the site with a separate project. That's what we wanna know.
You and I are saying the same thing.
Okay.
Dave, can I ask you one question? Just clarify, I thought the landfill didn't count against our eventual goal. So if you expand it, do we get to count that 0.8, or is that still, because they're gonna sell the Rex and other things, it doesn't actually count?
Well, it all depends on what we negotiate with them, right?
Okay.
So you'd have to redo the purchase power agreement.
Okay. And you could manipulate it, change it, make it more favorable for our goals.
Yeah, and it might increase the cost per kilowatt hour. But those are all things that end up negotiating with them. And, again, they're looking at it from a business standpoint. We're looking at it from carbon reduction standpoint. So there's two different looks.
Two different goals. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. And the last one is, if you did negotiate this change, you don't need to go to town meeting. You don't need to do anything. You don't need additional capital or anything else to handle an upgrade. This is sort of a business arrangement with them where you're going to play the rate against their cost of the upgrade and the duration or whatever.
Yeah, we're not required to go to town meeting for stuff like that. The only thing the light plants have to go to town meeting for are bond authorizations.
Yeah.
Everything else is non-binding.
Okay. No, I just didn't want to go to town meeting and find you had a solar project, we had a solar project, there was confusion, something like that. Okay, thanks.
I think we are confusing something here with these recs. Okay, let me just explain it real fast. We're counting the gray stuff and we're counting the existing landfill stuff in the 20. If Dave could figure out a way to upgrade the landfill and give us another, was it 0.8?
Right.
Then that counts the same way. But of course, you have to buy the Recs.
That's the thing, we have to buy the Recs to count
Well,
those now.
you don't have to buy the Recs from Kearsarge though.
No, you don't.
You have to buy the Recs off the market.
Right.
So
That's exactly what we do right now.
yeah, that's what you do right now. So regardless of what Dave does with Kearsarge on this, we're counting it. It's
Yeah.
in there.
Yeah.
It's done.
Because we'll buy the Recs.
Right there.
Or they'll
Buy
be,
the Recs.
one
Yeah.
way or the other, we'll get the Recs to cover it over. Whether they're part of the agreement or whether we go get them on the secondary market.
Right.
Yeah, if this upgrade happens, this would count towards the goal.
It counts.
without
Okay.
question.
He's being a
Thank
good.
you.
Dave, I have two questions if I can hop in quickly. So for you mentioned replacements, that's just the inverters, right? They're not touching the panels or upgrading the solar panels?
On the landfill, they'd be upgrading the panels and the inverters.
Okay, so they're doing it all. Okay.
Yeah, the current inverters are no longer supported. And the company that makes them basically discontinued making them and sent Kearsarge their money back. So they have to replace those anyway. And, I talked to them based on discussions that we've had here at the task force about what can we do to get more output out of the top of that. So that's where this whole thing started from.
Okay. So basically at some point there's going to be like no solar panels at all on the site while they're replacing the new ones. Or they'll do it probably step by step. So I guess that's the only thing I would flag. That is there a point where maybe they'd be interested if we jumped in and said, hey, we'll do the panels and everything if you have to deal with the PPA, but is that something that you considered at CMLP instead of them replacing it, like just making it one big site that we own?
So in the purchase power agreement, there are buyouts. We could buy that array out at any time and upgrade it if we wanted it to, or just put in new inverters. I don't know that that's the best move right now.
Yeah. Okay.
That was the sticking point in the negotiations with Kearsarge was the buyout prices and what it was based on. And, again, it's providing us clean energy right now at a pretty good price. So, and it's inside the territory, which I think, we all like. So.
Perfect. And was that 0.8 megawatts, was that within the bounds of your understanding for what the site could take with upgrades? Like, is that higher, that there maybe would be threats to the bus bar or anything like that?
Well, that's on the better of the two bus bars. So.
Okay. So not, okay. Perfect. Thank you, Dave.
So just to clarify to to your point, I think Dave said that, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you actually got sort of like two numbers back. One was that Kearsarge would just go in and replace the inverters with new inverters of a different make and just keep running the same panels. And the other was they do a full renovation, new inverters, and replace all the panels. And you got two numbers, one for each of those. Is that correct?
I haven't got the numbers yet, but those are the options.
Those are the two options.
And the third option, of course, is buying it out and then having one inverter for the whole site. Is that right, Dave?
There's multiple inverters up there right now. There's 3 of them.
There are.
Yeah.
But have one sort of inverter setup. One inverter gang.
No, there would still be 3 inverters based on the design. And you wouldn't want, like, I'll use Grace for an example. We've had an inverter fail up there. And so if it was a single inverter, the whole system would have been down. As it was, we lost about a megawatt or so for a month while it was being repaired. So it's better to have it multiple inverters for a reliability standpoint.
So segregated is got a silver lining in it.
It does.
Okay.
It's more expensive, but it provides you a better reliable system.
All right. I think we have a consensus here that we would like to proceed with a segregated system. That's really all the task force can really do. Does anybody disagree with that? I think that, yeah, okay, fine. I don't think we need a motion to that effect, but I think we're agreed on that. Okay. one thing that I kind of overlooked in creating this was, Gavin, you were gonna go, and I'm just gonna give you an opportunity here to just give us any update, if you have any, on looking at Field Road in more deeply.
Yeah, ultimately it's I forget the exact number now, but it was a couple hundred kilowatts. And hearing Laura's feedback that there were local residents that didn't want the solar glare on that site and problems with White's Pond. It's probably not an ideal site. It might be better if we look at, as the next step for maybe longer term planning, being rooftop sites that are within the bus bar that's okay with the headroom. But ultimately now I think let's have it in our back pocket, but I don't think it's worth moving on it, especially for the very limited kilowatts that we're getting.
Okay, all right. Okay, thanks. All right, so we are, gosh, we're within 3 minutes of being on time. It's shocking. So now I'd like to really talk about the long-term report. The first topic that was brought up last week, and we kind of had a conversation around it, a little bit of a circle, was this idea of how are we going to count if a private entity creates a significant amount of solar energy, and we want to try to incentivize an entity to do that, or we want to be able to count it against our goals. And Charlie was bringing up, I thought, a pretty reasonable thing, which is feeds pretty well, dovetails well with the BD problem. Think of the BD, where they're going to put up a behind the meter system, they're going to benefit from the energy, but they're going to have RECs. And because the BD is a town entity, the idea would probably be, well, you have to give them to the town and the light plant can retire them.
This is banned because it's small, it's just.
Yeah. But if it's a private entity, let's just say the parking lot at Emerson Hospital, where I think, Dave, you've had conversations with them, or you're trying to have conversations with them, and they're happy to put their own money into the effort, and they benefit from the energy. How can we count a large array? Maybe it's half a megawatt.
That was Baker Avenue, not Emerson.
Well, no,
No.
Emerson, Dave's talking to them about the light plant actually putting those arrays in. And then the light plant benefits.
Which therefore it's not a problem.
It's not a problem. We would benefit if we
Right.
go on our sheet and we be able to check the box. But if it's over at 300 Baker and they're willing to put stuff on their roof, let's just say, how could we count that installation? Let's say it's similar in scale to like 2x the BD, maybe it's 300 kilowatts off the roof of 300 Baker. How did we get that? And I thought you had a good proposal, which is that they were to then assign the RECs to the town. We would.
Yeah, I think that these, and Dave, you could comment on this, but I think that these large systems, we gotta be in the game with them.
Right.
And it's either a partnership with a big P or a little P.
Right.
And it's like BD. No, you don't get to sell those RECs. That's a small one. But in the case of Baker Avenue, hey, we're trying to do something here. You don't get to sell that stuff. You're part of this town. You're part of the infrastructure. You kind of got to play with us. And I think that also fits with the notion of the storage. Dave's is town gonna finance the storage, or is Baker gonna finance the storage?
It's a partnership. So they're gonna get the storage company, and then we're gonna have an agreement with the storage company. And then we control the battery whenever we want, and that's all part of the agreement. So, that would certainly work with the peak, and minimizing the peak by a megawatt or 2 megawatts, whatever size battery go in there. So it's a partnership, right? It's
So that's great. I mean, that's what we want to do is we want to encourage other people to spend their money rather than us spending our money.
You bet.
You know, and we're gonna get more solar that way than saying we're on the hook for everything. But Dave gets to be the partner here. He controls the storage. And, you know, we're making the rules. I think that's, but we get the recs at the lowest level of the deal. For us, my proposal is lowest level of partnership is we get the recs off the array.
So Dave, how's that working with 300 Baker? You're gonna control the battery, but there was no discussion around racks, was there? Are they selling them?
I don't know the answer to that for sure. I will say, the company that's working on that is very green. So it would surprise me if they sold the Rex, to be honest. But keep in mind that that array would not be allowed up without the battery, and that's where the partnership comes in. So
I mean, can't we kind of make the rules here?
Can we say you have to retire the
Look,
Rex?
the Rex, either you retire the Rex or we'll do a retirement service for you, and we'll retire them. But I think
I don't know if we can do that or not.
we retired them.
Let me-
What's your leverage? You're going to tell them they can't net meter, and therefore you won't accept any of their power unless they give us the Rex. But it's like the BD Center. If they use all the power, what force do we have to take the Rex from them?
Because the Rex enabled the town to claim this as a renewable resource. Otherwise, we're burning coal over there.
No, I understand. But what is our leverage in the situation to do that?
In the situation is that they got a company that they're running in town, and we're all in this together. It's a partnership, and you don't get storage. We're not going to do anything with you. You know, I don't mean to sound harsh, but I'm just trying to make a point.
If I'm a private entity and I decide to put solar on my building on my own dime, and I could stand it up, what's stopping me from doing that?
You don't get to do anything without Dave's approval anyway. You don't get to go out and build you don't get to go to the store and buy a bunch of 300 megawatts of panels and stick them up there and count on connecting to the town. I don't think that's what you're doing, Dave. Is it?
No, I mean, if they want to do anything with Rex, whether it's retire them or, sell them, they have to have an interconnection agreement with us, and
Right.
that's the control that we have.
That's the
So-
control. That's all I wanted to find out is how you gain control over them. That's
Yeah,
all.
so if they don't, meet our standards, then we don't sign an interconnection agreement.
I got
And
total control over the situation. We own, it's a monopoly, right?
yeah, as long as, the reason why we're not signing the interconnection agreement is legal, which,
Yeah.
then we're fine. So, what I think I can do to expedite this conversation is, I can talk with the owners at 300 and see what their intention is to do with the Rex. And, that way we don't have to make assumptions. We'll just know what they're thinking about doing.
To make a bigger point, I think that this is an example, but we are talking about trying to come up with a framework that anyone who wants to put in a lot of solar would fit into. Like, let's say the Fen school is on the challenged bus bar. They would need battery in order to allow that to even exist on the system. But they're a good community member, or Middlesex, up the road.
Totally.
Up the road, you got Middlesex. They want to put a bunch of stuff up, fine, but they're on the challenge bus bar. What do we do to create a framework where they end up retiring the Rex, or they give them to us to retire? That we say, we're not encouraging the creation of solar energy within Concord to then send the credit for it to some other town. I don't know how we want to
Send the credit to the IOU.
Well, you're going to send it to the IOU. You're going to send it to whoever buys it, which is out of the town.
Well, I just think, I don't put words in anybody's mouth here, but I just think we have a set of rules and policies. And then we have to market those to anybody that wants to put up solar. And I think this is perfectly reasonable.
Are we running afoul of state programs like SMART or anything else where these energy credits exist? I mean, I don't know.
What prevents us from doing the thing which is clearly the most attractive to most companies that aren't in this field at all? They would like to get a discount on their electricity.
Well, if they put them up behind the meter, they fund the thing, they get 100% of the electricity for nothing. Once it comes off the panel, it's theirs. So but they've put in the upfront capital to get that energy, but it's free to them. So I don't know what kind of discount you can offer them beyond free.
Well, the
They're
alternative,
considering the benefit of selling the rack.
Yes,
And their
that's part of the financial
analysis,
model.
right?
Well, here's another way to look at it. We could simply say, gee, we really don't care about it. They can sell their RECs. We just have to buy other RECs to cover that, to paper that over and take credit for it. Is that what we want to do?
We're
That's,
pushing racks anyways.
well, but no,
No.
but Charlie's right. This energy that is generated and then used within the town will need to have some level of accounting done
Yeah,
for
yeah,
it,
yeah.
and the light plant would end up having to buy the rest. Because we're committed to a green.
See, I mean, in the notion of partnership, you got storage and you got interconnect and you got all this engineering stuff and hey, this is the way we do it. You give us the rest. But you're right. We'd have to check out the SMART
Right.
stuff. And I also
you wouldn't want to
wonder,
want to get a foul.
is it also a restraint of trade?
Yeah, there's something. Exactly. I think we're in this some zone there. We gotta be careful.
Is there a possibility that when they're net metering, that you don't give them their full money back? You don't pay them back at the same rate that you charge them? And therefore there's an incentive to come to some agreement that says, give
That's
us
a
your
nice-
RECs and then we will, if you net meter, then we'll still pay you the full amount that a rate variation of some sort as an encouragement or a discouragement. If you're going to go sell the RECs, great. Then, every kilowatt you give us, we're only going to pay you back half as much.
it's nice and simple. Everybody can
That's
understand
a
that.
beautiful suggestion.
I don't know if it's legal.
We're selling two different things. We're selling, well, you'd have to have net metering though. If they consume everything, you can't.
Yeah, no, exactly. But if you had a big player, right, who was looking to make some money with the RECs or whatever, and you go, okay, well, you're hoping to save a whole bunch of money and have, the light plant potentially send you a check if you net meter enough. Maybe the answer is, great. We'd rather have the RECs than pay you the money.
What are we looking at for RECs in terms of money on a let's say a megawatt?
On a megawatt.
I don't know the answer to that. It's not, Dave might know what.
Is it a lot?
Dave, can you give us some insight as to, it would say gotta be in the model.
It
Yeah,
is.
I'd have to run the numbers,
Mhm.
but they're trading right now at pretty much the top price that they can go to. So, which is right around $40.
Yeah.
So,
And Dean, just to tie things on, I sent you that article about the pushback on solar.
Yeah.
And
Oh, this is the Atlantic Monthly thing?
yeah, it spoke to California basically saying we've got too much electricity and we don't want it back. And they're basically saying we're going to put some rules in that says we're not going to net meter. We're not going to take your power back, and we're not going to pay you for it if you do.
Yeah, I needed to get through the paywall there, Steve. I couldn't get.
Yeah, I'll try to get it to you. But the answer was that there was a
I was forever, so I read the article.
Yeah, it dovetailed with what Dave was saying is that the other utilities are having problems absorbing all this power. So they're trying different ways of discouraging people from putting power back onto the system.
There you go.
I guess I just said, all I can say is I would hate to have these large projects going in in commercial and us not to get credit as a town for what we're doing here.
I think we all agree with that. So the question is,
It's how we do it.
what
So-
is the incentive we can offer them that is compatible with that goal?
So Dave's gonna go check that out, but we do need to figure out whether we can get away with this as a policy, and we need to figure out what
Yeah, but there also may be a real simple one, like, you know, if you give us the Rex, we'll make a big deal about how wonderful you are for the town and how you're helping us. Right? You could do it from the PR side and try to get them to give it to us anyway.
It's not a strong arm deal. We're not strong arming them into giving us the Rex. We're just saying, if you give us the Rex, it helps the town achieve its
If you give us the
goals.
Rex, I'll be your friend.
I'll be your friend, you know, it helps the town achieve its goals. Then, you know, the good corporate customers go, hey, we're on the good side of trying to help Concord, as opposed to the people who are just trying to.
I think you
Well,
need to add, and we also send you a monthly check.
You know, to the degree that Dave is partnering with this entity, right?
Yeah.
We can modify our criteria for climate and say that, you know, that 20
Right.
megawatt could include and recognize the megawatts that are generated where we're supporting that battery.
Right.
I mean, that's an alternative too. We're sort of
Well,
killing ourselves with
I thought
the
that's what we were discussing.
I don't know. We're talking about the racks.
We're talking about recognizing the megawatts on the,
Right,
on
no,
the
no, no.
Baker Avenue
I got it,
rooftop
I
by
got
having
it.
some sort of partnership
Right.
book.
No, and I'm saying the same thing, but I'm saying, don't require it being the rack. I'm like, does it have to be that they retire the racks and give it to us? Does it have to be their racks? Or are we recognizing that megawatt because we're supporting their installation of the battery and controlling the battery?
Are we
I'm just
doing-
really out of the
Well,
box here.
I thought we
Like,
weren't, I thought we didn't count battery as sufficient partnership to enable us to count that, because if you don't have the Rex, it's
Yeah, I
not
mean, racks are
renewable.
the way you measure it. I get it. I'm just, the racks are hanging this up with some.
Well, I think we ought to write this up and get, and we ought to send this, if Dave would agree, we ought to send this, have Dave send this to the lawyers. Let's find out if we can do this.
To
Let me see if I can write something up
The CMLP lawyers.
that basically, well, I'll think of something, that sort of crafts some of the choices that we might want to do. I mean, all of this is really an accounting exercise.
I know,
for us.
right,
It's an
right.
accounting exercise. Is
Right.
this energy that's being generated at Baker Avenue counting towards the town's target goals? And that, you know, that's a little bit nebulous and, you know,
Yeah.
but
I don't think it is.
Well, logically,
that's
it should.
wrong.
Nebulous at all.
There's,
We've got.
the energy is the energy.
yeah.
Doesn't matter who's doing it. They're doing it, we're doing it. It's town. Solar.
Self-sufficiency.
And, you know, you can only manage so much solar in town. There's only so much slots that we have available to create solar. If they take them up and we're not able to count them, that's bad.
So here's an option. You can give anybody on a residential rooftop
Right.
a thing in their electric bill that says, if you assign your Rex to the town, you will be contributing towards the town's.
You can do that. You can do
And
that.
see how many generous citizens
Well,
say,
why
sure,
do we want to do that? Why do we want to get on that bandwagon?
we're trying to get the 20.
Yeah, you want to get buy-in. There's a way to outreach and get, maybe it's small buy-in, but it might count.
Well, you can do that. I think that's
A
fine.
rec is a rec. It's an accounting unit. It's not, you know, and it saves the light plant from having to go out and acquire it.
Yep.
You know,
Well, we're counting,
I know.
going after 5K at a time, or 3K, or 2K, or 1K,
Okay. Okay.
isn't it?
Yes, it is. It is. It is, but anyway, we have, there,
Dave has his hand up.
sure.
So just a couple minor things. So one, there's 4 megawatts of residential solar in the community right now. And the majority of our customers sell their RECs. We end up buying RECs to clean up the power supply. So I think we could count that. We also have 1 or 2 customers that give us their RECs and we're retiring them. So that's something that's fairly new. It's not widespread yet, but the whole discussion about a large array going in, many of them, if they went in, would sell their RECs from a financial payback. That's the only way the model works. And so we have to buy RECs to clean up that. So we're buying Rex to clean up that array. I don't see why you couldn't count it.
So you'd like to count it just because you're going in and buying the Rex
Yeah,
to
you're buying the Rex.
paper it over.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought the argument was we're not partnering and all that jazz.
Yeah, that's an arm's length relationship where we're actually paying out.
I don't like that.
I don't like that.
I don't like that at all.
It's-
I think, you know, either we're into this together or we're not.
Yeah.
You know, if the light plant wants to, I don't like that.
All right.
I'm okay with the idea of this residential thing. If somebody wanted to sign up and do all that administration and marketing.
Dave just said he has 2 customers already doing it. which is weird.
Dave didn't say he was willing to start up a program.
Right.
No, he didn't say that.
Go out and get everybody to give their Rex over.
Right.
And I know that a lot of people who got in the SREC program getting a lot of dough out of
I
this.
know that the SREC program. is
SREC
very
program was
good deal.
rich.
It's a good rich deal and it's
So-
been shut down. So there you go.
Well, they love that money.
I'm sure they do. My next door neighbor loves that money. All right.
So you're gonna write that up.
I will do my best. I'll bring it back to the next meeting and we'll see what that looks like. Yeah.
Somebody here understands better than I do, but we have an array. And the deal with the solar company is they paid for the whole thing, but we get a competitive rate and we then sell the power we generate as a climate contribution. There's a commercial market, and we get a check every month.
Those are the Rex you're selling.
But a Rex, you don't get a check, you get a certificate. You have to cash the certificate in.
No, you
We
get,
get-
if you're in a PPA, if you're in a
yeah,
PPA,
you can get it.
you're in a PPA,
they'll
Broker it for you.
they'll manage it
They'll
as
manage
a
it for you,
service
yeah,
for
yeah,
you.
yeah.
So you get a check.
So you'd have to
Nice
say,
and simple.
you don't wanna do that anymore.
Yeah,
You don't want
Right.
that money, you don't wanna do that anymore, you
Right.
wanna give that back.
It's gonna give it to
Because you're
Dave.
nice.
right. So basically what happens, you asked this question at the beginning of the meeting, we'll just answer it now. Basically, when you generate that electricity, there's a large accounting system that's part of the ISO New England that says every kilowatt you generated has an accounting credit that says a kilowatt was generated.
Right.
And that kilowatt is marked. Was it generated with coal? Was it generated with natural gas? Was it generated with, what are the climate characteristics of how that was generated? Yours are generated with solar. There's
Right.
wind credits, there's solar credits. Everything is identified by how it was generated. So yours goes into the accounting bank in that accounting system, and you eat the energy, you use the energy. Somebody else who was using natural gas generated power can then go to the accounting system and buy the renewable energy credit that you
Exactly.
put in there. And they have to pay you for it, but then you get the
But
money.
what
So
they
there you
do
go.
is they get off the hook.
They get off the hook.
See,
Right.
if you were to retire your Rex, it puts the squeeze on somebody to pay a big penalty or
Right.
get more renewables. So it's,
Anyway, so that's why you're getting money. There's an accounting system and
And it has to do with the country saving on non-renewable.
well, this just, it's an
Energy.
incentive structure.
Yeah.
so
We're good,
we're good.
That's a 5-hour discussion.
The long discussion, Bill. I know that's a short form.
So you're gonna write that up.
I
I
will do
don't,
my best.
yeah, I don't, somebody wants to suggest that we pursue, home stuff, fine, but I don't think we should.
Okay.
And I think we should figure out a way to get those Recs out of these commercial customers as a matter of policy. I don't think Dave's exactly comfortable with that, but
I just think it's hard because the financial model, the fact that they can sell it makes it viable.
Oh, yeah.
And if you mandate it, it won't be viable.
is that true?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's.
Is that really true that it won't be viable?
2.5.
But Dave already, I thought previously, Dave, you said that you didn't think they would want to sell those Recs. Said that
I'm specifically talking about the Baker Ave one.
I'm
Yeah,
talking about.
right.
in all the other models, it's hard to make the financial model work without selling.
Well, yeah, well, if they don't, so they're not doing renewables then. So Baker Avenue, if it sells the Rex, hey, dude, you aren't doing renewables. You're doing,
That's why he's gonna ask.
you're doing.
Agreed, and that's why I'm going to ask them, because they are a very green company. That's and
I know, but I'm just saying that were they to sell those Rex, the reality is that they ain't renewable. So, or that they aren't making a renewable contribution, and that's the way what they want to do. I don't think we should let people do that in these big
Maybe they're
arrays.
not selling.
We only have so much ability to do this renewable stuff.
Yeah,
Right.
yep. We can't let big opportunities just get out,
That's right.
get out in the wind. Okay, I
Okay.
would like to move us along a little bit here.
Sorry, I guess this was a long discussion, wasn't it?
Well, it needs to
Was
be.
it a good
It's
discussion?
a good discussion, but it needs to be, we need to have some sort of like, some little framework that we can then talk to, and I'll try to write something up that we can then mash around on and get somewhere with regarding counting private efforts or climate. Okay. So the next point on this agenda, and we're starting to now drift beyond our thing, is this idea of getting a draft outline. Laura did a nice job with the 1.0 moving along to the 2.0 report draft that she was putting together. And that's a great start, but I want to step back for a minute and think about kind of a clean sheet of paper. Like how would we want the final report to be structured? We need we can use that. She used all of the prior reports that have been done, and she then merged that into her idea about what it would be. There's a good idea. There's a good sense that a lot of what she's done can be leveraged, and so why not? But we need to do something that the task force does, and we need a quick start on that. Now, I had an offline conversation with Charlie, and I want to give him a minute to offer us something that I had brought up at the very beginning of our meetings, and that was, what are we doing here, and what was our charge, and should we write a mission statement? And when we had that conversation, everyone seemed to agree that between the warrant article and the charge that we are operating under, we know what we're doing here. And Charlie wanted to say something about that, and then bring that.
I'll go back to the original discussion, and I recall my comments. I didn't think we, quite frankly, were ready to put a finer touch on what we'd already put out with the charge.
Okay.
And I will say, in terms of my mind, I'm way much further ahead now about what we're doing than I was back then.
Okay.
And my view on this is that I sent you a copy of my thoughts on this.
Yeah.
I hope I'm not breaking the rules here, but I think that what we need to do is figure out what problems we're really trying to solve. We know what problems we're trying to solve. That is the committee's work. And the report is going to follow the work that we do addressing those problems. So you might think that's simple. Well, maybe it's not. I don't think we have agreed that we're going to actively look at curtailment, that we're going to actively look at well, I guess we kind of have agreed that we're going to look at curtailment.
We're going to
I
look
think
at
that
something to
I think that
protect the distribution.
I just thought that the central problem that we're dealing with is the sites, figuring out what sites are and vetting them. That's all. That's probably the easy part in terms of the intellectual piece. The hard part is figuring out how we get around how we deal with the issue of how much can we reasonably produce, and how would we reasonably produce it in a way that doesn't mess up the grid.
Right.
And it's also financially feasible. So, and I think that one thing that we need, and Dave, you probably thought a lot about this, one thing I think we need is we need a metric for what we're trying to achieve here with this, with this solar peak versus this load business. What is the metric? What is the ideal state of the difference between those two parameters on an ongoing basis, on a running basis, and how do we manage that so it works out that way? Are we trying to run with a buffer of a megawatt of load? I don't know.
The number I've heard was 1.5, but
I had 2.5. But
Yeah.
if we start with that premise, then we know that every megawatt that we add, or 2 megawatts that we add, or whatever, we have to be able to maintain that buffer. And if we need tools to maintain that buffer, we need to figure out what those tools are. Now, those tools could be curtailment, they could be storage, and they could be the gateway. And each of those things costs money, or the domain. So each of those things costs money and are more or less difficult to do, and will more or less get us to the result we want. But maybe I'm thinking wrong about this, but it just seems to me that we've got a dynamic system here, and we need to be able to control it in a way that, and that gets us back to the SCADA thing.
Yeah.
We need to be able to control it in a way that prevents us from blowing the system up while at the same time enabling us to get to the 20 megawatts. So that was the engineering problem that I thought we were dealing with.
Well, that's a logical, ultimate way of doing it. In my mind, at least, the way you make progress is to make it very concrete, very specific. For instance, our goal is to offer the town at least 2 megawatts to vote on at town meeting. That's a definite date. What are the steps that need to be made to have that at town meeting ready? And who's it assigned to? Tasks. And after you've reached the 2 at town meeting, the next step is when are you going to complete installation? On top of my head, I suggested the following town meeting, but that's an arbitrary number. But they have a plan which would lead to the town projects being in use.
That you're getting on a little bit of a different track than what I was suggesting, right?
A little bit.
What you got is the project side. Project side is the project side. That's clear to everybody. We know what that is.
But I don't have a copy of it.
Well, no, we know what the project side. The project side is doing enough projects to get 20 megawatts. It's doing 2 projects.
Right.
Still on them within 2
But we
years
don't
and so
have a
forth.
timeline and assignments to
But we will.
individuals.
We will have those.
That's the next,
We will have
that's the
those.
next item, Phil.
But
Goal setting.
But
so,
the
whatever.
Yes.
the point I'm making is you've got this dynamic system, and how are we going to make this thing work in a way that satisfies the objectives of the light plan? No.
So
Are we involved? Should we be getting into this stuff now? I don't know.
So Charlie, then your sense then is that the core of our report, or the mission of our report, is to really explore and document how we can make the system robust enough to put the solar on, and then the sites,
That's right. And what it will cost? What it would
and
cost?
then the sites follow along in some timetable.
Sites follow along in some timetable, and the system is robust enough to handle the sites.
But the thing that makes it murky from what I heard at the last meeting is the town doesn't need all that power. In other words, there is no town use for anything like 20 additional megawatts for some years to come. So.
Well, the 20 megawatts simply is displacing some other megawatts. That's all.
That we'll be
Yeah, it's
purchasing.
not-
We can always adjust what we purchase in order to, because we have this available.
So this is
in-house.
stuff we're making versus stuff that
Yeah.
somebody else is making. So it's local, there's no transmission associated with it, there's no capacity charge associated with it and so forth.
You got that right.
That's why I agree. I mean, I guess I have a different perspective on it, that solving the problem is our job. I actually do think it's Dave and the Lighthand's job to work on those issues, but that these problems gate our ability to meet that 20 in the time frame of 20,
That's right.
right? That's really the
Right.
problem. And so we need to understand Dave's solutions to those problems, and they're gonna gate what
Well,
projects can be
I
done
don't think we're
when.
gonna solve them either. Dave is the only one that can
I know,
solve this
it's
stuff.
right, so,
But we are the catalyst to get this stuff out on the table. This hasn't really been done before that I know of.
no, I think,
Do you know what have we ever heard what the buffer is? Yeah. the
no,
official
I
buffer?
mean, you're
Buffer
raising
number?
that difference, no, I haven't, I'm just saying, I just see it as, it's something, it's a detail we have to get to, and maybe Dave can speak to this in a minute, but our charge, I think, is still trying to figure out, can we meet that 20 megawatt target? And through what series of projects, in what order? The timeline is gonna be gated by our infrastructure ability.
And my
Yeah.
fear,
In funding, by the way, but so our board, I think has to address that issue. I don't think we're ready to do the report at all. I think we have a lot of work to do.
Well, good. I don't think we are either.
Yeah. no, I think we-
and my fear is at that level, other town committees have been formed and then a couple of years, and that was the end of it.
Well,
So we need to get very concrete. How do we get started is the first question to be answered. And that's where the projects that we're now giving priority to fit in.
But
well, there's,
I'm appreciative of your focus on, achieving concrete results, Phil. I'm appreciative of that. But the actual charge of this committee is to generate a report that lays out a timeline, and you may consider it shelfware when it's done, but it should become a roadmap for both how the network itself can accept the energy and how the different sites come
As
online.
long as phase one is very concrete and very
Well,
specific.
It is. It is.
We've spent more than half the meeting talking about very concrete projects that we are working on diligently to try to get done. So
you
I
know,
just come back to what you said. You said that this really solving these issues is not really our problem. So it seemed to me that the charge said that was our problem.
well.
Unless
think
I
it's-
don't understand
no,
the
but
charge.
it's to understand, well,
We
it
need
is to
to,
some
we
degree,
can't
but
go
not-
off and do the light plant's technical work. We're not gonna do that.
Right,
We're gonna work, they're part of this thing.
yeah.
Right.
no, I
But this
know.
process needs to get us to an environment that enables us to do this solar stuff. Now, you can either do it this way, one project at a time. Dave, we have enough on that, bus board to do this? Or we could say, well, look, what do we really need to do here? And you brought up this stuff before. You brought up the stuff that was in the plan. The
Yeah, well-
SCADA, the storage. So
Right.
all these things, I think, need to be brought in here and worked on. And again, we're not gonna tell the light plant what to do. We're not gonna tell the light plant how to run their business.
Right.
And we're not gonna pretend to do that. But we've got our own ideas about this stuff, and we should be putting them on the table.
In a way, we are kind of telling them, we're saying, if I heard correctly, we'll provide 20 megawatts, get rid of some of your contracts because we won't need them anymore. So that is telling them what to do.
Well,
You should buy us
Really?
from the outside.
they know what to do with their contracts. There's no issue.
I don't know if any of them are long-term. Are
They're
they?
all gonna be-
Mostly all long-term.
So therefore,
I
can
I
we-
might hop in here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. I was just gonna say I was under the impression, or maybe this is what my opinion is for what the strategy should be, is while we're going towards the town meeting up until this December, let's get these short-term projects on and deal with those. Then, as you were mentioning, Charlie and Wendy, if we need to look at SCADA or anything else, we do that after we've already submitted the warrant. So that's when we transition sort of to a phase two and our own planning to think about longer term. So if that's working with Dave to figure out, okay, if we're going to have a dynamic system in the future with solar, okay, we're going to need SCADA, we're going to need another transformer, we're going to need batteries. I think that's definitely something that should be on the table because that's the only way we're going to get to 20 megawatts of solar. But for now, I think we just keep that off to the side and focus on these short-term projects for the town meeting. And then in the new year, as part of our final 6 months on the solar task force, we should do that longer term planning and get into the weeds on it.
Off to the side.
Just
It's been off to the
I
side all
need to
along.
get going to- I
What?
get going on something.
Pardon me?
I said, so when you say it's off to the side, it's a long term, like wait till
Yeah,
January.
yeah, the long-term stuff, I mean, spending a little bit of time on that every meeting is probably not a bad idea.
No, I think it's a very good idea.
Yeah, because, all of a
That was
sudden,
my
all of a
original,
sudden,
that's my
we're up
original
against
intention.
doing some report, we go, what are we gonna do? Geez, Wendy's handling that. We're off the, Wendy, where's the report?
My fear based on past experience is if we don't have something very concrete with dates and people assigned, the risk of dragging out a multiple of it is a very common experience. We want to avoid that.
Right. Okay, so I was hoping that someone would be able to take an assignment, because I can't give groups assignments.
Yes.
Review in the first agenda, I listed pretty much links to every report that the town had done. So the first agenda has a whole laundry list of links to a lot of the reports that have already been done. I also distributed Laura's second version of the draft, which is not online. Dave, is it possible to get that updated online? Right now, the one that's online is Laura's
PDF.
the 1.0,
So 1.0.
the 1.0 version of her report.
That has the statement by Thoreau on the first page.
I don't know what it has in it. I'm sorry, but
We can get it on the web.
yeah, the
Yeah.
2.0 version, if you get that on the web, that would be fantastic. Anyway, I'd like somebody to just sit down with all of that mashup and think of what would this report, what would this committee put out, and how would it lay out in terms of its sections. We're just looking for an outline, look for a lot of text, just what are the important highlighted items, and we can flesh them out as we go along. Now, Gavin, I'm just going to throw out a name, was working on something that he just said we shouldn't work on anymore. So
No, I was saying in the next 2 meetings before the new year. Hey, I'm the one taking the notes here, so I'll know what I say.
Why don't we have
Rewrite the notes. Yeah.
of the
well, I'd like
of the outline and have someone else work on all the issues and obstacles part of the outline.
that's a good. I'm happy. with
I would
that.
be willing to volunteer for the latter.
Okay, Charlie just
Okay.
put himself on issues and obstacles, and then
And Gavin is on
he's already deeply into the
short-term projects, long-term
Okay.
projects, identifying that, all this kind of good stuff. So that's
Okay.
You guys share that? Okay, all right, we have some candidates, that's good. Now, I do wanna give a little bit of airtime, we're down to 8:29, and we only have one member of the public, so hopefully there aren't gonna be too many comments. What I'd like to think about, and this is just me sort of table setting for this. Phil's been pushing for, we need goals, we need concrete targets, and I'm here. Our goals start at the very highest level at the state level, or you can go all the way up to the UN reports and all the rest of that. But at the state level, the state has its own climate action goals, which have a legislative requirement that the governor revisit them. I think it's every 3 years or 2 years. How often do they have to revisit it?
Well, that was 3. Right?
Three. Anyway, they get revisited, and each time Charlie Baker did it, they became more aggressive. They became worse. Like we have to work harder, we have to get there faster, and so that they flow down, and then they flow down to town meeting actions. I think Article 51 or whatever, which is where we were married to that, and then we went off and did work, and we created the climate action resilience plan, which ended up setting a goal that we are now charged with, which is to try to find our way to 20. Okay, how are we going to get to 20? What's our next set of things? Well, we have a target report that we now have 2 people who are going to try to outline, but part of our charge was make progress, do something. and we've got two projects in place. The high school and the landfill that we're actively pursuing. My goal is to get each of those, I'm gonna try to keep pushing on both, each of those represented on the warrant this year. Now, it looks like, based on what we've heard tonight in the meeting, the best we might be able to do with the high school is get a small summary amount of money for a feasibility study to get the high school catchment area done. But I think the landfill has more potential, and I'd like to see us with a goal of getting an actual project, approval from town meeting, if that means money, if that means a debt issuance or whatever. Dave, you've been down this road with CMS where you put like a fairly big number on the table and then fine-tuned it. By the time you ended up actually at town meeting, it was quite a bit smaller. We may need to be doing something like that, but
So it's a good question to ask Dave. Are we going to be able to get this on the warrant this year?
You won't have the stuff ready by December, but what Dean described is the only way I think you guys could do, because there's a lot of work here. You guys have identified a lot of work, and I think you're right. But to get the numbers you need by December, that's really difficult.
We don't need the detailed numbers, so Dave, right?
we
No,
need
but-
kind of rough cut.
Yeah,
though.
right.
We
You're gonna need a
can't-
rough cut, and I think that's achievable, but you gotta keep in mind that then you have roughly 4 months to get good numbers.
Well,
And that's
we
where the
do
challenge is.
have enough granularity to get a fairly decent number.
Yeah.
To the right million.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, yeah, it's doable. I'm just,
Twice
I
as
just-
much money in there as we needed.
If you have to make an adjustment at town meeting, it's an amendment to the warrant.
You just amend it down. It's
Yeah.
nobody.
They just don't spend it. They don't so pursue it.
so guys, I have to jump off.
Yeah, okay.
If you need anything, just email me.
We good, Dave?
That's
Yeah.
those are my
Thanks, Dave.
goals for now, is to get this done and get something for both of these projects. And I think I'll talk to Mary Hartman about these and see what we can get.
I think you're also making your life harder by suggesting that we wait for town meeting to get approval for this little study of the CCHS. I don't think you want to do that. When's town meeting? Town meeting's like next April. We should be much further into this by then if they want to do that.
Well, I'll talk to Mary about whether we can
It's a
spring
15
some.
grand or it's all.
Yeah, maybe we can talk to Mary about springing some money that require us going to town meeting so we can make forward progress rather than get approval in April for $15,000 or whatever that costs. So, all right.
You can put it on the warrant anyway for
I'd like to
a
see.
feel good thing.
I'd
but you
like
don't
to
wanna-
see something on the warrant for each of these, so that the
Yeah.
town there's a presentation, there's imaging,
Mhm.
there's something that shows what we're trying to achieve and that we're trying to make progress. So
Because if we're not, full bore on getting these things done, I don't know what we're doing here.
Yeah.
You want
So-
waiting until what, April, but then the committee's, sunsets in June, so.
Right.
Haven't done much, like the other
So our
committees.
report, I sort of feel like, to the earlier points about nothing gets done, and some of it has a lot to do with what's been on CML.
Play,
But
yep,
our report has to talk about that. Has to talk about how it gets done and what is the incentive. Like,
Right.
the select board needs to be charged for a plan or carrying someone to get this implemented.
Yeah.
And
Get what
make
implemented?
it part of their strategy.
We get the
Right.
get the
That we've
projects
done
done.
this work, right? I mean, the CMLP should change their strategy and they'll update it to put more of these projects, and it has to
Right.
become more of a formal commitment. And that
Yep.
can be part of our recommendation.
Yep.
And it's the select board to charge someone to do it. And in a very public thing, right? And it's under the climate action plan or whatever, but I mean. we have-
well, that's how we got formed in the first place, is that it's in the climate action plan.
Right,
It wasn't happening, so here we
I know,
are.
well,
So-
battery sources are done too, so I don't know, like.
You want a battery task
Oh
force?
my God, I am not to a battery.
We have our own ideas.
Yeah.
And they happen to be as good as anything the light plan ever came up with.
Yeah, it hasn't. It was
And
never mentioned.
we know a lot about
Dave
this.
has-
We, you know, we
Dave-
still haven't.
we're still in a meeting. I'm gonna
No,
skip.
but we know a lot about this stuff. So it's not like we're just waiting around for somebody else to come up with some bright ideas.
No, yeah,
Right.
I mean, that's,
Okay.
We do know a lot about this.
Yeah.
I'm gonna skip new business because I don't think we have
can
time.
I ask just say, there is
Sure.
another 40B project. Have you heard about it?
Yes, I am aware of it.
one
I
you
saw
must have, like,
something
row-
came
Oh, boy.
across my, yeah,
Rivers,
there's,
no, it's through something.
Well, there you
Yeah.
can use, they get the deal if we get the Rex.
Yeah.
We get the deal for the building. if
It's
we get
River
it.
Road.
yes, I
Oh, we
did,
should
something
comment on that.
something came across my
It's
email
called like
box.
Thoreau Residence or something. It's another tourist.
Yeah, somebody in my neighborhood is all.
Yeah.
Send me some stuff.
So just a comment,
Yeah.
because you wanted to keep tabs on
Yes,
projects. So,
so I have Phil Thayer here. Do you have any
Phil
public
Thayer.
comments?
How you doing, Phil?
I'm doing okay. How are you all doing?
Doing
I'm
good.
doing well.
Yeah, sorry, I wasn't able to attend the earlier meetings, but I really appreciate all of your hard work on this and moving this task along.
Okay, is that the extent of your public comment, Phil?
Yeah, no, I have some experience with solar development in Belmont, which I'm happy to help or provide any background information or connect you with people. But it sounds like you're already well connected with Solar Design Associates, and they're just a fabulous resource.
Well, we're hoping to be able to tap them for a little design work on the landfill, and that's the project that we are in full control of. We don't have to work through another, legislative entity to get anything done. We can just move forward. So if Dave can free up a little bit of budget money for a study over there, maybe we'll make some headway. I'm gonna call for.
Dean, give me a second. Sorry, Phil, can you just say your address for the record?
Is 36 Mill Run Lane.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Phil.
Thank you.
All right.
There's the problem that we're trying to solve.
Yes, that is the problem.
This is the problem.
I'm looking for a motion.
I make a motion that we bring the meeting to a close.
Oh, we have to have a
Second.
motion.
It's been seconded. Okay, since we have members on the Zoom, I'm gonna call for the roll. Steve,
Yes.
Gavin,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Wendy,
Yes.
and Charlie,
Yes,
and myself, Dean. Yes, we are adjourned.
you see how quickly people